Welcome to Midnight Horror, the channel where nightmares come to life. Here, we bring you spine-chilling horror stories, unsolved mysteries, and supernatural phenomena that will haunt your dreams. Join us as we explore the dark corners of the world, from forgotten ghost towns to haunted houses filled with eerie tales. With each video, you'll experience heart-pounding terror, suspense, and unforgettable thrills. If you love horror, crave ghostly stories, and want to test your courage, then Midnight Horror is the place for you. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and ring the notification bell to ensure you never miss a new video. Step into a world of horror and mystery, only on Midnight Horror.
Linda was a woman in her early 40s, with long auburn hair that she often tied back into a practical ponytail. She was a devoted wife to Mark and a loving mother to their 2 children, Emma and Lucas. Linda had always been the rock of the family, the one who kept everything running smoothly amidst the chaos of daily life. Before the move, Linda worked as a school teacher in the bustling city. She loved her job, finding joy in teaching young minds and nurturing their growth. However, the city's noise, cramped living conditions, and the constant rush had taken a toll on her over the years. She longed for a quieter, more peaceful life for her family, somewhere they could breathe and grow. Linda had always dreamed of living in a house with character, a place with history and charm. When they found the Victorian house on the outskirts of a small town, it seemed like the answer to her prayers. The picturesque neighborhood, the spacious yard for the kids to play in, and the allure of starting fresh in a new environment all appealed to her. Despite the excitement, Linda couldn't shake a sense of apprehension. She had always been intuitive, often sensing things that others missed. It was this intuition that made her an exceptional teacher, able to understand her students' needs and concerns. But now, it was whispering to her that something about the new house wasn't quite right. She brushed off these feelings, attributing them to the stress of the move and the enormity of the change. Linda was determined to make this new house their dream home. She spent hours planning how she would decorate each room, imagining family dinners in the spacious dining room and cozy evenings by the fireplace. She hoped that this move would bring their family closer, offering them the tranquility and space they had been yearning for. As they prepared for the move, Linda focused on the positives, reassuring herself that this was the right decision. After all, they were moving away from the noise and stress of the city to a beautiful house with endless potential. Little did she know that her intuition was right, and the peaceful life she envisioned was about to be overshadowed by unimaginable horrors. Linda stood on the curb, staring at the enormous 3-story Victorian house. The movers were unloading the last of the boxes from the truck, and her husband, Mark, was busy directing them. Their 2 children, Emma and Lucas, were already running around the spacious front yard, their laughter echoing through the quiet neighborhood. The house was a dream come true, a fresh start for their family after years of living in cramped apartments. They had saved every penny to afford this place, and it seemed like the perfect home. Linda smiled, watching her children play, and walked towards the front door. As she stepped inside, a chill ran down her spine. The air was musty, and the house felt colder than it should have on a warm summer day. She shrugged off the feeling, attributing it to the fact that the house had been vacant for some time. The hardwood floors creaked under her feet as she explored the rooms. They were spacious and filled with natural light, but there was something unsettling about the shadows that seemed to cling to the corners. "Linda, come see this." Mark's voice broke her reverie. She followed his voice to the living room, where he stood by a large, ornate fireplace. He was holding a dusty old book that looked like it hadn't been touched in years. "Look what I found," he said, grinning. "This place has so much character." Linda forced a smile. It's certainly unique. Let's just hope it doesn't have too much character. Mark laughed and set the book down. Don't be such a worrywart. This is our dream home. Everything will be fine. But as Linda glanced around the room, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching them. Over the next few days, the family settled into their new home. Emma and Lucas were thrilled with their new rooms, and Linda busied herself with unpacking and decorating. But the unsettling feeling persisted. She heard strange noises at night, whispers that seemed to come from the walls, and she often felt a cold breeze even when the windows were closed. One evening, as she was unpacking a box in the attic, she stumbled upon an old photo album. The pictures were of the house and its previous occupants, a family that looked eerily similar to theirs. Linda flipped through the pages, her heart pounding. There was something off about the photos. The family never smiled, and their eyes seemed vacant, almost lifeless. "Mom, what's that?" Emma's voice startled Linda, causing her to drop the album. "It's just an old photo album," Linda replied, trying to keep her voice steady. "Nothing to worry about." But Emma's eyes were wide with fear. "I saw a man in my room last night. He was standing by the window just staring at me." Linda's blood ran cold. "It's just your imagination, sweetie. There's no one here but us." But as she comforted her daughter, Linda couldn't shake the feeling that Emma's words were true. There was something in the house, something watching them. That night, Linda couldn't sleep. She lay in bed, listening to the creaks and groans of the old house. Every noise seemed amplified in the silence, and she found herself jumping at every little sound. Around midnight, she heard it. A soft whisper, barely audible, but unmistakable. It seemed to come from the hallway outside their bedroom. She nudged Mark awake. "Did you hear that?" she whispered. Mark groaned and turned over. "It's an old house, Linda. It's bound to make noises." But Linda was convinced there was more to it. She slipped out of bed and crept to the door, peeking into the dark hallway. At first, she saw nothing. But then, out of the corner of her eye, she caught a glimpse of movement. A shadowy figure stood at the end of the hall watching her. She gasped and stepped back, her heart racing. The figure didn't move, just stood there, shrouded in darkness. "Who's there?" she called out, her voice trembling. The figure remained silent, and after a moment, it seemed to dissolve into the shadows. Linda backed into the bedroom, her mind racing. She didn't know what she had seen, but she was certain it wasn't just her imagination. The next morning, Linda decided to do some research on the house. She went to the local library and dug through old newspapers and records. What she found chilled her to the bone. The house had a dark history. It had been built in the late 1800s by a wealthy businessman named Samuel Blackwood. According to the records, Blackwood had been a recluse, rarely seen outside his home. Rumors swirled that he had dabbled in the occult and that his wife and children had mysteriously disappeared. Linda found an old article about a series of disappearances in the neighborhood around the time Blackwood lived there. Children had gone missing, and their bodies were never found. The article hinted at dark rituals and sacrifices, but nothing was ever proven. As she read, Linda felt a growing sense of dread. She realized that the family in the photo album she had found might have been one of the many that had lived in the house after Blackwood. They had all met untimely ends, their deaths shrouded in mystery. Linda rushed home, her mind racing. She had to tell Mark what she had discovered. They had to leave the house before it was too late. When Linda returned home, she found Mark in the basement, fiddling with the old furnace. He looked up as she entered, his expression dark. "What's wrong?" he asked. Linda took a deep breath and told him everything she had found. Mark listened, his face growing paler with each word. "You're telling me we bought a haunted house?" he said incredulously. "I'm telling you we need to leave," Linda insisted. "Something is wrong here, Mark. I can feel it." But Mark was skeptical. "We've put everything we have into this house. We can't just leave because of some old stories." Linda could see he wasn't convinced. She felt a wave of frustration and fear. "Fine, but if anything else happens, we leave. Promise me." Mark nodded reluctantly. "Okay, if anything else happens, we'll leave." That night, the whispers returned, louder this time. Linda lay in bed, clutching the covers, as the voices seemed to swirl around her. She could hear fragments of sentences, pleas for help, cries of pain, and then she heard Emma's voice, calling for her. Linda bolted out of bed and ran to her daughter's room. She found Emma sitting up in bed, her eyes wide with terror. "Mommy, they're here," Emma whispered. "The shadows. They want to take us." Linda hugged her daughter tightly, trying to calm her. "It's okay, sweetie. Mommy's here. Nothing's going to happen to you." But as she held Emma, Linda felt a cold presence in the room. She looked up and saw the shadowy figure standing by the window again. This time it was clearer, more defined. It was a man, dressed in old-fashioned clothes, his eyes dark and hollow. "Leave us alone," Linda screamed. The figure didn't move, just stared at her with those empty eyes. And then, slowly, it began to fade, disappearing into the shadows. The next day, Linda and Mark argued about what to do. Mark still wasn't convinced they needed to leave, but Linda was determined. She couldn't risk her family's safety any longer. As they argued, the lights in the house flickered, and a cold breeze swept through the room. The whispers grew louder, more insistent. Linda felt a pressure in her chest, a sense of impending doom. "We have to go," she pleaded. "Please, Mark." Mark hesitated, then nodded. "Okay, we'll leave." But as they gathered their things, the house seemed to come alive. Doors slammed shut, trapping them inside. The whispers turned into screams, echoing through the halls. Linda could feel the presence of the spirits, their anger and pain pressing in on her. "Mommy, I'm scared," Emma cried, clinging to her mother. "It's okay, baby. We're going to get out of here," Linda said, trying to stay calm. They made their way to the front door, but it wouldn't budge. The windows were sealed shut and the walls seemed to close in around them. Linda felt a wave of panic. They were trapped. "Mark, help me," she cried. Mark joined her, and together they pushed against the door with all their might. It finally gave way and they stumbled outside, gasping for air. As they stood on the front lawn, looking back at the house, Linda saw the shadowy figure standing in the window, watching them. She knew they had escaped, but the house's horrors would stay with them forever. The family moved in with Linda's sister while they searched for a new home. They never spoke of the house again, but the memories haunted them. Emma had nightmares for years, and Linda couldn't shake the feeling that they were still being watched. They eventually found a new home, a small modern house with no history. It wasn't their dream home, but it was safe. And that was all that mattered. Linda often thought about the old house, wondering what had happened to the families before them. She couldn't help but feel a sense of guilt, as if they had somehow disturbed the spirits that lingered there. But she knew they had made the right decision. They had escaped with their lives, and that was enough. The house remained vacant, a dark shadow on the otherwise peaceful neighborhood. No one dared to go near it, and over time it fell into disrepair. It became a local legend, a ghost story told around campfires and whispered about in hushed tones. But for Linda and her family, It was a reminder of the horrors that could lurk in even the most beautiful of homes. They had learned a valuable lesson. Sometimes, the past is better left undisturbed, and some houses are best left alone. What do you think about this story? Feel free to share in the comments. Thank you for watching, and goodbye for now.